श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Looking at verse number 16. तत्र एवं सति कर्तारम् आत्मानं केवलं तु यः पश्यति अकृत बुद्धित्वात् न स पश्यति दुर्मतिः। So we are looking at Lord Krishna breaking down karma into its various components. So what are the main ingredients of any activity? That's what Lord Krishna listed out. 5 Panchaitani Mahabaho Karanani Bodhame Sankhye Kritante Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam. So we saw this in verse number 13. And verse number 14, he listed out the 5 ingredients, 5 components of any activity. Adhishtanam tata kartha karanam cha prithak vidham vividhaha cha prithak cheshtaha daivam cha eva atra pancham. So the main components of any activity are the adhishtanam. The adhishtanam here is the physical body. So physical body is necessary. So karta, and then the person who is connected with the physical body, the doer. So the consciousness lending itself to be the doer, to become the doer. So karta, and then karanam, various tools required for performing the activity. Tools can be external and also internal in the form of the antakarana, the mind. So karanam, and then vividhaha cha prithak cheshtaha. So, and the pranas, the physiological functions, the physiological functions are required for the performance of the any activity. So the 5 pranas, one needs to be breathing, prana, apana, vyana, circulation, digestion, and then excretion. So these 5 pranas also need to be working properly. And daivam. So the blessing from the devatas. That is also important. Whether we generally do not acknowledge it. So the karta assumes or takes credit for all the activity. But unless I'm blessed by the higher powers, I will not be capable of doing anything, even lifting my hand. The Devata presiding over my hand has to bless me. I take it for granted, but still the blessing needs to be there. So, Daivam. So, Lord Krishna acknowledges that, and these are the 5 components of any activity. So, we are going to keep on breaking it down and narrow it down as much as possible. So, that is the whole idea. To understand what really karma is. What is it all about? So that is what we are trying to do here. Because we say karma activity, and it's a very superficial understanding. So activity can be anything. So breaking it down into its really most significant components. So that's going to give a better idea. So that's why Lord Krishna is doing that. And then verse number 15, he said, so this is true of any activity performed either with the body or with one's speech, through one's speech, or with the mind. So activity of the mind also includes all these components. So verse number 15, he said, Sharira Vang Manobhiryate Karma Prarabhate Naraha Nyayam Va Viparitam Va Panchaite Tasya Heta. So Sharira, Vak, and Manas. With any of these, any one or more of these 5 components are required. And whether it is legitimate or otherwise. So whether it's a legitimate activity, whether it's a good activity, or an evil activity. So either way, these 5 components are required. So that is the fact. Panchaite tasya hetavaha. So all this we saw in the last class. Then verse number 16. So this is what we were looking. Tatra evam sati. So far so good. So that being so, kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yaha. So one who looks at oneself as the karta. So as the one who looks at the Atma as primarily responsible for me to be the karta. So that person really knows. That person is wise. Atmanam kevalam kartaram pashyati. So one does not take all credit for the activity, but acknowledges the presence of that consciousness because of which I am allowed to be the karta. So that person knows, and on the other hand, so the person who looks at himself as the karta, that person does not know. That person is ignorant. So, or you can say, see, the meaning is, see, tatra evam sati tu akrita buddhitvat yaha atmanam kevalam kartaram pashyati saha durmatihi na pashyati. Yeah, so no, slightly different. So what he says here is one who looks at the Atma as the Karta. So one who attributes the doership to the Atma, that person is ignorant. Because the Atma remains unaffected by any activity that I perform. So the other way is the other way I explained it is also okay, but this verse directly, this is what it means. So one who attributes the doership to the other. See, the idea here in these verses is to look at the Atma as being unaffected by anything that I do. So whatever I do only has a bearing on the Jiva. And the Jiva is just a notional entity that I have created for myself. The I, if you go searching for the I, then one will not find the I. Because it is something that I have created out of my own imagination. So I keep saying I. But where is this I? So where can you really catch hold of this I? You can never catch hold of the I because it will keep slipping away from your grasp. But I do everything. I live my whole life with the assumption that there is an I. So there is an individual. There really is no individual. That's the idea. There is just consciousness. So this verse seeks to establish that that consciousness really does not do anything. But still, without that consciousness, you cannot do anything. See, that's the conundrum here. See, that does not do anything. But without that, you cannot do anything else. So this is what is brought out in this verse. And some people, because they are so identified with the body, they also superimpose the doership on that consciousness. First, limit the consciousness to your physical body, and then superimpose doership onto the consciousness. So this is mistake committed at two levels. First, limit it to your body. It's all pervasive. But you first limit it to your body. And then you superimpose the doership. So, and you blame everything on consciousness. I'm not doing anything. Some people say also, I don't do anything. So Bhagavan makes me do. So indirectly meaning that the consciousness is making you do. Bhagavan does not have any motivation to make you do anything. So if you want, you can do. If you don't want, you can keep quiet. So whatever I do is out of my own volition, is out of the individual's volition. No one really forces me to do anything. No one forces anyone to do anything for that matter. But many people, in the name of surrender, so they also say that Bhagavan forces me to do, Bhagavan asks me to do. Bhagavan does not have any motivation to make anyone do anything. So here this verse says that if you attribute the doership to Bhagavan or consciousness, then that is incorrect. Because consciousness just lends itself and at the same time does not push you to do anything. And then the question is, Shankaracharya raises a question here. The question is, at least in association with the other components, does the Atma do? Okay, it does not do on its own. But in association with the body, once it gets associated with the body, then can we say that the consciousness is also taking part in the activity? If we accept that, then that will also be dangerous. So consciousness taking part in the activities of the body. See, there the discussion gets a little technical. So anything to be associated with anything else, anything to be associated with anything else, it has to undergo some modification. For any connection, so it has to undergo some modification, some change it has to undergo. So here the Atma is unchanging. The consciousness does not change. So that is what we have been seeing so far, and that is how it is. That is what has been established so far. That the consciousness does not change. And for any activity to happen, there should be some change. For the connection also, and then the activity to happen, there should be some change. So, if one says that the Atma is connected to the other components, how does the connection take place? See, Atma should have parts. One is it should undergo modification. And the other requirement is that it should have parts. Suppose I'm connected with someone. So some part of me is connected with that person. One object is connected with another object. Then one part of the object is connected with another object. So then that would mean that one part of the Atma is connected with the other. So then that would mean Atma has parts. Atma has different components, which is also unacceptable. So neither is the changing Atma acceptable to us, nor the divided Atma acceptable to us. Atma with parts, that is also not acceptable to us. So then how do we say it is connected? So because the argument is that is the Atma performing activity by being connected with the other components in some way or the other. So we are questioning the fundamental assumption here. How do you connect? Either it has to change or it needs to have parts. So neither is possible. So how can it be connected? And then assume the doership. So this is the argument. I hope it is clear. So the argument is the Atma somehow connected with the physical body or the mind or the other factors required for performing activity? So the answer is it cannot be connected. No connection is possible because no change is possible, nor does it have parts. So the Atma remains independent of the contamination of any activity. So neither do the results go and attach with the Atma, with the consciousness, nor does it play any role in performing the activity itself. So that's why the verse says, Atmanam Kevalam. So that Atma which is independent. So if one were to consider or one were to assume that it is the doer, it is actually independent. If one were to attribute doership to the Atma, then one would be making a grave mistake. It would be a grave blunder. Because then again another drawback of this argument would be, serious drawback of this argument would be, if the Atma gets connected, then I will never get moksha. Because Atma is also contaminated, Atma also, it has tainted itself. So how will I get moksha? I can get moksha if only if the Atma remains unaffected. So that I go and identify with that unaffected Atma. The Atma becomes connected and it becomes contaminated and tainted, then there will be no moksha. And I will be forever stuck in the samsara. There is no escape from the samsara, no hope for any escape from the samsara. So that would be a tragedy. So you are in samsara and you are stuck to samsara forever, for good. So you will have to continue suffering forever. There will be no way out of this issue. So that's why we cannot allow the Atma to be affected, to be contaminated, to be tainted by any activity. So that is why it cannot become the doer. It cannot assume doership. And if one attributes it, then that person is ignorant. So this is the argument. And this is what needs to be kept in mind. And then next verse number 17. Yasya naham krito bhavaha buddhiryasya na lipyate atvapi sa iman lokan nahanti na nibadhyate. So, on the other hand, yasya ahankritaha bhavaha na. Yasya buddhihi na lipyate. On the other hand, if one does not have, one is not limited by this sense of limited I, by the sense, by the ahankara. So one does not take the ahankara to be the complete truth. Yasya buddhihi na lipyate, and whose mind is not contaminated, is not affected by the impurity of any activity. Yasya buddhihi na lipyate. Hatvapi saha iman lokan na hanti na nibadhyate. So even if one were to do the activity of killing, again it is contextual. Because Arjuna is waiting to start the killing at a humongous scale. So Lord Krishna is saying that even if you start fighting the war now, even if you start killing, you will not be affected. That person is not affected because there is no ahankara. One does not take all credit for oneself. One is just doing what needs to be done. So, hatvapi saha iman lokan na hanti na nibadhyate. So, lokan here, loka means people. So, these people, even if you happen to kill them, so really you are not tainted with the result of that activity, nor are you bound by the result. Why? Because I do not have the doership. A simple change in attitude. So this is the assurance given by Lord Krishna. You just take the doership away. Then if you, whatever you do, you are not affected. But taking the doership away is the big task. Because the doership naturally comes into the picture every moment. So it never goes away. The I that I have created for myself, that is involving itself each and every moment. Anything I do, at least the good things I do, can I have doership? Lord Krishna says no. So at least my talents, I have worked so much for the talents that I have. Suppose I'm an artist or whatever talent I may have, I'm a scientist, whatever. So I have worked so much. I have put in so much effort. So at least little credit I can take. Lord Krishna says, I'm very sorry. So you cannot take any credit because you never did it on your own. You always had to be blessed by something else. So this is so unfair. So people may say, this is so unfair. But then Krishna says, that's the way it is. So take it or leave it. So that's how it is. But if you take credit, I'm not stopping you, but if you take credit, then you will have to also face the consequences of the undesirable things. And there is always some punya papa mixture. Papa is always mixed with it. So you will have both. So you will experience the punya and the papa and then exhaust it, spend it, come back. Then again work, spend it, come back. So this is what you will keep doing. So this doership, that is the main culprit. That is the chief culprit. And if you take it away, then you are free. This is the whole theme of the Bhagavad Gita. So getting rid of the doership. So this is what needs to be worked for. So this is what I need to work for. And even if it were such an extreme activity like killing, this would not apply to Hitler. So because Hitler also, he committed a genocide. So will Hitler be affected? Definitely he will be because there was so much kartrutvam there. Some Aryan supremacy nonsense. So he was not even an Aryan in the first place. So we can call ourselves Aryan. So Indians. So he was not even an Aryan as far as that Janma was concerned. But then he was He was imagining some kind of Aryan supremacy, establishing Aryan supremacy, and then started all these concentration camps. So there is a very strong identification. And finally, he was scared of death and then hid in a bunker. So there was so much kartrutvam there. So necessarily he will face the consequences. But here also, Arjuna is at the doorsteps of a humongous war where there is large-scale killing, not just of men, but of animals, of so many life forms, because it's a huge war. So, but if you take the doership away, Lord Krishna says, even this papa you can escape from. Lord Krishna definitely feels Arjuna is capable of doing that. That's why he is saying this. Then we'll move to the next verse. Okay. Verse number 18. ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं परिज्ञाता त्रिविधा कर्म चोदना करणं कर्म कर्तेति त्रिविधः कर्म संग्रहः. So now activity is being broken down further. So first we broke it down into 5 components. Adhishtanam, Karta, Karanam, Prithak Cheshtaha, Daivam. So those were the 5 components. Here we are breaking it into 2 main parts, which is within those subdivisions only. So Jnanam, Jneyam, Parijnata. So here Jnanam is the instrument of knowledge. Jnayate anena. Not just knowledge, is the instrument of knowledge. And then Jneyam is the object of knowledge. What is to be known? And Parijnata, the knower is there. The one who knows. The instrument being the mind and buddhi. And the one who knows it is also there. So karta alone becomes the jnata. So jnanam is there, the instruments are there, the mind required to gain any knowledge. And then the object of knowledge, knowing is there, knowledge is there. So whatever you want to know or whatever you know later. And then the parijnata, the knower is there. That is with regard to the knowledge required for any activity. And then he says, Karanam karma karta iti trividhaha karma sangraha. So this first one, Jnanam Jneyam Parijnata Trividha Karma Chodana. So they are what push you into activity. See, primarily if I want to do any activity, so the instrument of knowledge and then the object of knowledge, what I know, and then the knower, they are what catalyze you into action. Suppose I want to do something, I need to have some basic minimum knowledge, understanding. So the mind, so these are the 3 factors that really catalyze you into activity. Karma chodana. So they impel you, they catalyze you into activity. or they force you, push you into activity. And then the other three, Karanam, Karma, Karta. So these are the Karma Sangraha. So they are the three components of karma, of the activity itself. First is what catalyzes you into doing something. Second is what are the components of the actual activity. So the actual activity from the five, so he breaks it down, actual components. He says Karanam, the instruments like the hands and legs, etc. Karanam and Karma. Karma here is not activity. Karma, the meaning of karma is what is most desired by oneself. So that is karma. So because one of the meanings of karma is ipsitatamam karma. That which I desire, desire, uh, desire very strongly. So that is called karma. So here, don't think of karma as activity. So karma is something that is most desired by me, by the one performing the activity, that is karma. And then the karanam, the instruments required, the tools required for the activity. And then the karta, the doer, one who is performing the activity. So these are the three components of the activity itself, three ingredients of the activity. So we are, keep in mind that we are narrowing it down into smaller and smaller levels. So jnanam, jneyam, parijnata, karanam, karma, karta. See, take the example of any activity for that matter. So if you look at Arjuna himself. So what is jnanam? Here the instrument of knowledge. So the vritti, so the mind required for the knowledge. So that is jnanam. And then jneyam. Here is what one knows. Like he wants to fight. For fighting, he needs a mind that is capable of fighting. He needs the object, someone to fight against. Or he needs the weapons, so knowledge of the weapons, jnayam. Or if someone to fight against also you can take. And then parijnata, the one who has this knowledge. So that is Arjuna. So he has the knowledge, the mind, appropriate mind for fighting. So he has the people he wants to fight against. He has in mind that he wants to fight against. And then the parijnata, so the one who knows all of this. So that is Arjuna himself. And then the actual fighting. So Karanam, the tools required for fighting, the weapons. The weapons are there. And then karma, what is most desired. So that is kill them. Fight against them, defeat them, kill them. So that is karma. And the karta, the one who kills, that is again Arjuna. The karta, jnata, they are one and the same here. but looked at as the knower and the doer. So for any activity, suppose you are doing a job, your profession, so you are the knower. So you need to, the one who knows what the job. And then the mind required for doing a particular job. That is jnanam. And then jnayam is what the job that you want to do. So the object. And again, the one who performs it, the tools required to do the job. You need other people, you need the infrastructure. So that is karanam. And then karma, what you want to accomplish. So that is karma. And then the karta, one who actually performs the job. So any activity has all these components. The knower components are there, and then the doer components are also there. So these are present in any activity. Tridhaiva trividhaha karma sangraha, or the three constituents of karma, and karma chodana. Trividha karma chodana, trividhaha karma sangraha. So both are there. The threefold catalyzers for activity and the threefold constituents of activity. So these are all there. So these are things that you need to think about. And then finally, you have to look at the consciousness separate from all of this. Separate from the jnata, from jnanam, jnayam, and karta, karma, and karanam. So that Atma is independent of all of this. So these six are possible only if you have the kartrutvam associated. So if you have the doership associated, either for knowing or for doing, the ahankara needs to be there. Only if the ahankara is there, then you can do any of the activities. So what happens to a jnani? For a jnani, the ahankara is suspended. So the ahankara works in a way so that it is not completely involved. So that is how the ahankara plays the role. So far, so good. So what have we seen so far? So panchayetani, first we saw fivefold constituents. And then we broke it down into the knower components and the doer components. The knower components are three and the doer components are also three. So this is how it is. And then look at the next verse. Verse number 19. Jnanam karma cha karta cha vridhaiva guna bhedatah prochyate guna sankhyane yathavat shrinutanyapi. So jnanam, so the knowledge, karma. Here again, karma is action. So previous verse, karma was what was most desired. So here karma is using in the sense of action. So that's it. So that's why you have to carefully understand. So jnanam, so the knowledge, and karma and karta cha tridhaiva guna bhedataha. So these three also, he is going to divide them into threefold. Jnanam is going to be threefold. Karma is going to be threefold. And then the karta is going to be threefold. We will see, we are going to see in the subsequent verses. So a whole lot of verses are just dedicated for this. So threefold knowledge. See, knowledge is there, but knowledge can be also different varieties. We are not talking only about Atma Jnana. So we are talking about a knowledge in general. So this is a generic understanding of knowledge. So any knowledge is can be of one of three categories. So that is why knowledge cannot be given a clean check, that it is always good. So from this we understand that generally we tend to think that knowledge is always good. But according to Lord Krishna, knowledge is not always helpful with regard to one's own spiritual journey. So there are certain kinds of knowledge which keeps you in samsara, which hold you back in samsara. So knowledge which is only at the relative level, that will hold you back in samsara. There is some people so who feel so proud about having a huge library. So books, so tend to assume that books are always good. Books may be okay, but there are a lot of books which keep you in samsara. If you look around your library, so you will have to separate what are the books that keep you in samsara, what are the books that help you get out of it. So, controversially, now we have to say that knowledge is not always a good thing. So, knowledge can be binding also. Knowledge can also be binding. Keep on gaining some knowledge or the other. So I'm working towards gaining some knowledge, so I'm spending my time usefully. That is not always true. So if what is the motive with which you are working towards gaining knowledge? So all that is very significant here. Because this is a very widespread notion that knowledge generally is a good thing. Not so. I'm not saying Lord Krishna is going to say. So jnanam karma cha karta cha tridhaiva guna bhedataha. Prochyate guna sankhyane. Lord Krishna is also saying that. I'm not saying it. So the Sankyas are saying it and we agree with the Sankyas. So guna sankyane means Sankhya. So the Sankyas are saying that guna sankyane prochyate yathavat shrunu tani api. But I will also make use of that kind of classification. Please listen to me, he says. Which means he agrees with that. So whatever the Sankhya says, he completely agrees with. So this is the fact. So keep this in mind. This endless pursuit of knowledge is a mindless thing. So you will have to be sure what kind of knowledge and whether it is short-term benefit or long-term benefit. And again, whether it is going to be relative or absolute. And here, because it is Bhagavad Gita, it is a moksha shastra. Lord Krishna is going to primarily focus only on absolute knowledge, absolute knowledge, not on relative knowledge. So let us be very, very clear about that. So don't unnecessarily increase the size of your library. Nowadays, people don't because everything is going online, which is a good thing. So you don't, physical libraries are going out of fashion. So you have online libraries. So even Atma Jnanam, so we have online libraries. So I have created one for myself. So put it all on cloud so that I can access it whenever I want. And it is helpful. But still, even if it is on cloud, you have a library on cloud. So again, that also one has to look whether it is relative or absolute. So whether it is cloud or now it can be Kindle. So your library on Kindle. So whatever you read on Kindle, so that can be your library. So knowledge is very clearly classified. So yathavat shrinu tani api. So please listen to what I have to say. He's telling Arjuna. So we will also listen to what he has to say about the different classifications of jnanam, the threefold classifications of karma and karta. He is going to classify in terms of the three gunas. So what is sattvika jnanam, rajasa jnanam, tamasa jnanam? Sattvika karma, rajasa karma, tamasa karma. So like that. In terms of the guna, he is going to classify. So first we will look at jnanam. The next verse talks about sattvika jnanam. सर्वभूतेषु येनैकं भावमव्ययमीक्षते अविभक्तं विभक्तेषु तज्ज्ञानं विद्धि सात्विकम्. So he says सात्विकं ज्ञानं सर्वभूतेषु येन एकं भावम् एकम् अव्ययं भावम् ईक्षते and vibhakteshu avibhaktam. So vibhakteshu, among all the divisions that exist in the creation, in the world outside, everything is divided. So everything is discrete. So divided or discrete. So objects are discrete. That is why we can also have knowledge of different things. If they are not discrete, then we cannot have different knowledge. We cannot transact at all. So it has to be, it is limited in space, it is limited in time, it is limited in form. So it is very, very discrete. So vibhaktam sarva bhuteshu. In this world of full of division, in this world full of division, avibhaktam avyayam. So one who learns to look at the changeless, supporting all the divisions as the truth of all the divisions. Avibhaktam, changeless and the undivided. Ekam bhavam, that pure existence. Yena ikshate tat jnanam satvikam vil. If you have this kind of knowledge, where you can look at the divisionless and the changeless, which means the truth which is blessing all the divisions, then that knowledge alone is Satvikam. That means Atma Jnanam alone is Satvikam. Okay, but at the relative level also, if you want to extend it to the relative level, so you are not looking at it at a very superficial level, but you are looking at it at a very fundamental level. So anything looked at a very fundamental level, then it has a generic application. It has a widespread application. So whatever has a widespread application, like whatever a Nobel laureate, a person who gets the Nobel Prize, he discovers, he or they discover. Because usually Nobel Prize is given to 2, 3 people together. So a lot of times. So single person getting Nobel Prize is, is not too common nowadays. So, but any knowledge that is generic in nature, that knowledge is Sattvika, you can say. But at the absolute level, it can only be spiritual knowledge. It can be self-knowledge. Because Vibhakteshu sarvabhuteshu avibhaktam avyayam ekam bhavam yena ikshate. So that knowledge where you can see the fundamental truth, the basic truth in and through all the divisions that are there. So this is a good way of learning also. Anything we learn, so you learn to understand the fundamentals. So then the superficial, the surface level things become clearer. So there is a lot of clarity. So this is what this is Sattvika Jnana. So Jnana, 3 varieties. First is Sattvika Jnana, where the knowledge is very generic and very fundamental in nature. So that is Sattvika Jnana. So follow the train of thought here. So 5-fold divisions, components of any activity, and then 3 with regard to the knowing part of any activity, and then 3 with regard to the doing part of any activity, and then the knowing is divided into 3, the knowledge is divided into 3, and then activity is going to be divided into 3, and then the doer is going to be divided into 3. So this is how the breaking down happens. So keep this in mind. So activity, knowing part, doing part, and the knowing part, 3 qualitative differences with regard to the knowledge part, and then the 3 qualitative differences with regard to the action, and the 3 qualitative differences with regard to classification with regard to the doer. So now the knowing part, so the 3 gunas. So Sattvika Jnana is a generic fundamental understanding with regard to anything. So we'll come back and look at Rajasa and Tamasa. Jnanam and then Karma and Karta. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।